Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Iyun Benzion. Today's daf is Nedarim Chavtet. Maybe one of the most long dakim in Maseches Nedarim. The Gemara brings two shitas in our Gemara that are quoted on the bottom of Chavchet Samad Beis. How do you understand the second clause in our Mishnah? Um, you say these netios, these trees are kadosh until they're cut down, meaning they're kadosh. They have kedusha while they're still standing. If they're cut down, then what happens? Do they automatically lose their kedusha? Right? The kedusha means that they have value. That if he wants to sell them and bring a carbon with the money. So, what happens if they get cut down? Did the kedusha evaporate automatically and there's no kedusha anymore, or do you assume, like Barpada says? Barpada says you're po to them even after the cut down. You have to be po to them. Vidayo, and that's okay. And Ula says no. Kedusha pakal b'kdi. So the Gemara challenges Ula, who you hold like Ula against Barpada. Ula, what would you say about Kiddushin when you're Makadesh a woman, or you marry a woman, right? You say, the Gemara says in the top of Chav Teram and Aleph, you say to a woman, you'll be married to me today. Presumably you gave her money, right? You did a kinyan nisuin somehow. And then tomorrow you're not I stipulate you're not my wife tomorrow. Tomorrow morning you're not my wife. Right? So the Gemara says, Minafka below get. Yeah, of course you have to give her a get. If you want to dissolve that marriage, the marriage is not dissolved, just the fact that I say, okay, we'll be married for a day, and after a day it's over. It doesn't dissolve like that. So here also, how could it be? You say it's kadosh until they're cut down. So even after it's cut down, where did the kedusha go? The kedusha is still there. You have to be poded. So the Gemara first tries to make a distinction. The Gemara says, by a woman, that's kedusha aguf. Ishtoka gufo, right? Kiddushin, we'll discuss this in a second. Presumably, it's Kiddushin. You're makdish the woman, like the Gemara says in the beginning of Zechas Kiddushin, Lashon Kiddushin, right? That you're asar akuli alma kahektish, right? You're asar like everyone, like hektish, except to me, your mutter. To everyone else, you're like hektish. But by the trees, that's Kiddush damim. Kiddush damim is different than Kiddush aguf. Kiddush damim, you're not makdish the actual item itself. You're makdish the value of it. So therefore, right? The tree has no inherent kedusha, so therefore, once it loses its kedusha when it's cut down, so then the kedusha, the value is gone. Right? It's like cryptocurrency a little bit, right? There's no actual physical object cryptocurrency. It has its value, Bitcoin, but once it evaporates, once FTX disintegrates, your crypto is gone. You can't retrieve it. It's digital assets. There's no actual coins over here. So it's gone. It's just value. It's not actual shalom. There's no actual physical object over here. So they're just dumb. And there the value dissolves automatically. But by Kedusha's goof, it doesn't work that way. The Gemara challenges this. The Gemara brings a brisa by karbonos, right? When you're makdish, first there's an ola, and then it turns into a shlomim 30 days later, or vice versa. The Gemara Maskan on Chav Teram Beis is that you have to say this brisa is talking in one case Kedushas Damim, and one case like Kedushas Guf. So even by Kedushas Guf, the Gemara says it's Paka Bechdi, right? It goes from an Ola to a Shlamim. Ola has more Kedusha than a Shlamim. Ola can only be makriv to HaKadosh Baruch for the entire thing. Shlamim, the Bailim and the Kohanim eat from it. So it is Paka Bechdi even with Kedushas Guf. And that's the Maskan of the Gemara. So back to original question, what do you do? By a woman who gets married, Kedushas Aguf. The Gemara says, for sure, it's impossible to say that she gets married for a day and then it dissolves the next day without giving her a get. So what's the answer to the question? So I'd like to suggest, as I suggested before, there's a fundamental little difference between a marriage and a Kiddushin. We'll talk more about this in Maseches Kiddushin. People think Maseches Kiddushin talks about Erusin, and Kiddushin are often used interchangeably, those words. Erusin is the first step, and I get engaged to the girl. Right under the chuppah, you give her a ring. It's kedushin, erusin, and then nisuin is, it's a machlokas in the Shulchan Aruch. What exam Evan Ezer Siman Nun Vav? What is that? When I was in Sachs this year, when I was on Sachs this year, I gave 5 explanations. What is the kinyan nisuin? Is it being under the chuppah? Is it the yichud room? Is it the bia? Is it the bedekin? Different opinions when the nisuin happens, but everyone agrees there's 2 stages. There's the kedushin, and then there's the nisuin. And they happen at different times. First you do a kedushin, and then you do a nisuin. So that's the simple explanation. And erusin is another way of saying kedushin, which is a little, problematic. Why does the Gemara use different words for the same thing. They're totally different words, Erusin and Kedushin. Um, so therefore, in order to resolve this question, I'd like to make a distinction between Erusin and Kedushin. And say what the Gemara says, if a person says to a woman, Hayom Arishti, Lamachar Arishti, Ishti is wife, is Nisuin, presumably what we're talking about. When you get married to a woman, a Nisuin, right, you're married to her for the rest of your life. The only way to dissolve that marriage is through a get. And that's what the Gemara says. That's not Kedushin, right? Kedushin, right? The Gemara calls it Kedushin Zaguf. When you marry a woman, is that like Kedushin? It's like a korban? She's a korban? She belongs to like a korban? Not exactly. The only place where the Gemara uses Kedusha is Maseches Kedushin, where the Gemara in Daf Beis and Beis compares Kedushin to Hektish. When you're Makdish a woman, when you become Kudeshes to a woman, she Asra Kula Alma Hektish. It's a borrowed term from Hektish. Not exactly like a korban. You can't be mocker of your wife on the Mizbeach, but she's Mikudeshes in the fact that she's usher to everybody else like Hektish. So when it comes to Kedushin, and this is the whole principle of Kiddushin. If you ever learned about Islam culture, and Shiite Muslims hold of something called Nikiya Muta, which basically is a marriage of pleasure. If you translate it into English, basically means I can be married to someone, a prearranged marriage for a specific amount of time. We're going to be married for 2 months, 3 months, 9 months, a year, 2 days, 1 night. And then it automatically dissolves. That's Kiddushin. Kiddushin has nothing to do with Erusin. Erusin is the precursor to Nisuin. Erusin, first you're Ma'aris, the woman, right? You're Ma'aris, the woman, whatever, however you do that. That's the first step of Erusin. Once I'm being Machal, Kiddushin, and Erusin, all those 3 Kinyanim of Kiddushin have nothing to do with Erusin. Erusin, maybe Kinyan Kaspo, you buy the woman or something like that, you give her a specific gift, you give her Erusin, you send her a nice gift bag, Sivlonos and things like that. We'd have to talk about what makes Erusin. But Erusin maybe Yichud, like the Gemara says, in Yehuda they're Miyachid with the Urusa. So Erusin is a precursor to Nisuin. It's ultimately Nisuin is the Bia, or bringing her under the chuppah, Nisuin carrying her under the chuppah, under the canopy bed, and then ultimately being together. I've discussed Nisuin is a precursor. There's 3 stages: Erusin, Nisuin, and the actual Bia. Which is the third level, but that's nothing to do with Kedushin. Kedushin is a prearranged marriage for a certain amount of time. So when you call it Kedushin Zaguf, the Gemara says, if you say today you're my wife, tomorrow you're not my wife, that is not Kedushin Zaguf, right? There, it's talking about a kinyan. You own your wife in a certain kinyan Nisuin, so therefore you made a kinyan, you have to mavatal that kinyan. There's no Kedusha over here. Kedusha means I sanctify something. So maybe the sanctification could just dissolve automatically, which is true by Kedushin, Nikiya Muta. If that's the meaning of Kedushin, you prearrange a certain amount of time, Kaddish you for 9 months, and then it just dissolves after 9 months. You wouldn't need again in that case. But if you want to marry a woman, so that's not Kedushin. Like, that's not Kedushin. She's not your korban. There's no Kedusha over here. It's not a holy thing, right? It's not a holy thing. It's marriage. So therefore, the only way to dissolve that marriage is through a get. And that's why the Gemara says, of course, right, you need to dissolve through a get by Kedushin. Kedushin Guf, Maskana is that technically you don't need a get. You could give it, you could break it off with a get. Earlier, right, if you made a prearranged marriage for 9 months, you want to give a get after 4 months, you could break it off with a get. But after 9 months, it will dissolve by itself. I think that's Maskana. The Gemara over here, it's a pretty big chiddush, but I think it's true. I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.